right, we live. All right, microphone check, 1, 2. What is this? This is B. Michael here with Shifting Paradigms Business. We are live here on KUAW Radio, Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom. This is January 3rd, excuse me, 2022. Wow, we are in a new Gregorian year, 2022. That's what we're going to talk about a little bit tonight. But I always want to give a shout out to Baba G on the soundboard, holding it up and keeping it down, always doing a great job keeping this radio station ever broadcasting. So always, much appreciated and well-deserved recognition to Baba George Walker and just the crew, everybody else on this wonderful radio station. I always want to shout out my co-podcasters. This is brought to you by the Black Family Technology Awareness Association. Just providing all kinds of wonderful services for the youth, the community, ensuring that, the STEM discipline is definitely pushed. So excellent, excellent, excellent. And so shifting paradigms, we're all about stimulating critical thought in order to realistically redefine our narrative and positively reshape our reality through dialogue with self-determination. And so we want to just, present like different shows that challenges pretty much status quo thinking. We want to make sure individuals are thinking a little deeper, seeing a little bit beyond what is the pale. And tonight we're definitely going to do that. It's a solo show. I have some interviews coming up, but just dealing with some things that, I see that we need to address to make sure that we're oriented right. This is very important. And so dealing with this, I came across an interesting post on Facebook today, as a matter of fact. It was today. And it brought a little laughter to me, but at the same time, it's a concerning matter. It really is. And so the post was like, Black folks love astrology, but think it's the year or swear it's the year 2022. And I was just like, whoa, that was pretty deep, because astrology, when you really look at it, and astronomy, particularly astronomy, well, let's say astrology, because astrology is dealing with time, really is dealing with time. The zodiac signs or the 12 houses that the sun travels through is about time recognition. That's what it's about. And so tonight we're going to talk about that somewhat in light of what year is it, right? What day is it? What month is it? Whose time are we following? And this is important because when you think about it, for those who are employed by an employer, you are on the company's time in order to get your dime, right? So if your schedule is from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, it would behoove you to appear and do what you're expected to do during that time, correct? And so one thing that I present as striving to be a child of the Most High, of the Creator of heaven, earth, sea, and all that is in them, of following the timeline or the calendar, if you will, of the Creator of heaven, earth, sea, and all that is in them, I seek and strive to be in alignment with the time of that Creator. And so that is what I strive to do. And as a witness of that, it's my duty to share that with you. Now, as we start this, I want to let me go ahead and share my screen too while I'm at it. Let me go ahead and bring this information up. So shout out to Baba G for hooking up the share screen. Always keeping us on point. Yes, sir. Excuse me. And so I want to start with the book of Genesis, okay? The book of creation. This is the first chapter, 14th through the 19th verse. It reads as follows. It says, Elohim said, let lights come to be, in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night. Okay, so that's a determination of time. And let them be for signs, appointed times, and for days and years. So here it is, right? There are lights in the sky that determine day and night. They determine important signs. What are the signs for? To understand where we are prophetically in creation. Also for appointed times and for chronology, days and years. Okay, verse 15, let them be for lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth. So they provide illumination. Okay, and it came to be so. Verse 16, Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day. So we know that's referring to the sun, and the lesser light to rule the night and the stars. So we refer to the moon. And Elohim set them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth and to rule over the day and over the night and to separate the light from the darkness. So this is a very huge verse there, because those who recognize the light that they shine and follow the order, the time that these luminaries provide for earth in spirit and truth, well, you're also separating those who are following either the darkness or the light. So there's separation not only in nature, but also in the kingdom of humanity. And Elohim saw that it was good, and there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the fourth day. So this is important. The fourth day is important because now we see the dominion, we see the order, we see the sovereignty of those sentient created beings, such as the sun, moon, and stars, which are servants of the Most High, fill their role. And that is to provide, again, light, is to provide distinction between day and night, is to provide determination of signs, appointed times, and days and years. So it's very important. Got a little tea here, sipping on some go-to cola, nettle, and elderberry tea. Keep my, throat nice and soothed, not parched, but soothed, quenched. So we're going to look now at the definition of a calendar, because this is important as well. Make sure I got this showing, and it is showing. All right, what is a calendar? This is from Encyclopedia Britannica. A calendar is any system for dividing time over extended periods. Let me close out this ad. Don't need that ad, not interested. Thank you. Again, it is any system for dividing time over extended periods, such as days, months, or years, or arranging such divisions in a definite order, okay? A calendar is convenient for regulating civil life and religious observances, and for historical and scientific purposes. So calendars have a very important role in society. Again, they regulate civil life, so they provide some sort of order in society, again, based on whose time you're on, who has determined the time that you're going to do what, okay? They provide recognition for religious observances, okay? So now you know when these appointments are, these appointed times, and for historical and scientific purposes. Very important, okay? The word is derived from the Latin calendarium, meaning interest register or account book, itself of derivation from calendae or calende, the first day of the month in the Roman Republican calendar. So Rome's first month wasn't always called January. It was called calendae. Interesting. The day on which the future market days, feasts, and other occasions were proclaimed. This is what that order was established by, how the order was established by the Romans. But the development of a calendar is vital for the study of chronology. Okay, that's the study of time, pretty much how time is ordered. Okay, since this is concerned with reckoning time by regular divisions or periods and using these to date events. It is essential too for any civilization that needs to measure periods for agricultural, business, domestic, or other reasons. So calendars are vital to society, okay? The first practical calendar to evolve from these requirements was the Egyptian. And it was this that the Romans developed into the Julian calendar that served Western Europe for more than 1,500 years. But what calendar was Africa working on, right? These are the questions that we need to ask, because they're gonna, most of these articles are very Eurocentric. So they're going to, epitomize time from a Eurocentric standpoint, which is, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you have to understand that there were other realities in existence. Our paradigm was functional long before the Julian calendar, long before what we see coming up next, this Gregorian calendar. We had our own calendar millennia before any Eurocentric paradigm or model was brought forth. And that's just historical. I'm not trying to be racist or biased or anything. This is historical fact, okay? The Gregorian calendar was a further improvement, they say, and has been almost universally adopted because it satisfactorily draws into one system the dating of religious festivals. Whose religious festivals is the question? Whose festivals are these religious observances following, right? That's the question. Again, the Gregorian calendar was a further improvement and has been almost universally adopted because it satisfactorily draws into one system the dating of religious festivals based on the phases of the moon and seasonal activities determined by the movement of the sun. Such a calendar system is complex since the periods of the moon's phases and the sun's motions are incompatible. But by adopting regular cycles of days and comparatively simple rules for their application, the calendar provides a year with an error of less than half a minute, okay? And I'm gonna say this, if you don't know what time it is, you're very disoriented. If you wake up and you think it's a certain hour, if you think it's a certain day, if you think it's a certain month and you think it's a certain year and it's not, your time is off. And if you are not oriented properly to time, nothing you will do will have really any order to it, okay? So this is why this is important, because if we think right now we've entered into a new year, which when you look out into creation and you look at the grass, you look at the trees, you look at the plants, you look at the flowers, they're dead. There's nothing new. Everything right now is dormant. What's new right now in creation? If this was a new year, right? So when we're recognizing that, whose time are you on? Whose order are you following? Is there really something new right now in creation, or are you being lied to? Which is what I would propose. You're being lied to. Nothing new is right now, except what those who created this system of time have purported to tell you. And their purportings are not accurate purportings, okay? They're very politically expedient purportings, but they're not very accurate purportings in truth and in reality. Now, we know that the West, and particularly the United States of America, utilizes the Gregorian calendar. The Gregorian calendar is the calendar that America adopted, I want to say in 1792, or maybe 52, 1752, and has followed that calendar ever since. But we're going to take a look at some interesting facts about this Gregorian calendar from the History Channel website, history.com. This is an article that was written on August 22nd, 2018, going back, it was updated August 22nd, 2018, and was originally written September 13, 2012. And it's called 6 Things You May Not Know About the Gregorian Calendar, okay? So first and foremost, the Gregorian calendar, the original goal of it was to change the date of Easter, okay? Which was already done in 325 by Emperor Constantine, okay? Constantine changed the Pesach, if you will, the Paschal, the Passover, from a Hebrew calendar to a Julian calendar. He changed it. Just professedly says it was changed. And they call it the quartodecimean or the quintodecimean argument. Okay. This is what the Nicene Creed ends up doing as the Catholic Church divorced itself from everything that was indigenous to the scriptures, and that most expressly being the people. Okay. And their cultural observances. They divorced themselves from it. So in 1582, when Pope Gregory the 13th, so Gregory, the Gregorian calendar, is a religious calendar. Let's be clear about that. It is a religious calendar to a Julian calendar. Gregory the 13th introduced his Gregorian calendar. Europe adhered to the Julian calendar, first implemented by Julius Caesar in 46 BC. Okay. Since the Roman emperor system miscalculated the length of the solar year by 11 minutes, the calendar had since fallen out of sync with the seasons. Very important. You got to be in alignment with the seasons. And we'll talk about how we find the seasons. What season is it? How do we determine the seasons? Many of us who are aware of astronomical or astrological phenomena understand how seasons are determined. We'll talk about it shortly. But this concerned Pope Gregory because it meant that Easter, traditionally observed on March 21st, fell further away from the spring equinox. That's what determines it, the spring equinox with each passing year. So he had to find a way to calculate this so that it lined up, right? But this is the problem of following a solar calendar. You see, the calendar I'm observing is a semi-lunar, semi-solar calendar in that the months are determined by the moon. The year is determined by the position of the sun or the earth in relation to the sun, okay? In terms of the revolutions that it makes, not just the rotation on its axis, that determines the day, right? But the revolution around the sun determines the year. So again, this calendar was created for religious purposes. Let's be clear. So what America, which claims to be a pluralist country, is following is a Roman Catholic calendar through and through, okay? And all roads we know in the world lead to Rome, or shall I say of the world lead to Rome. Everything leads to Rome. We'll get to that in a little bit as well. So they go on to say too, leap years don't really occur every 4 years in the Gregorian calendar, right? They don't occur exactly every 4 years, okay? So they have some misses with that as well. The Gregorian calendar differs from the solar year by 26 seconds per year, right? So time is that particular. It can be very, very particular. And so the Gregorian calendar only differs from the solar year by just 26 seconds. This is interesting. Number 4, some Protestants, those who followed Martin Luther during the Protestant Revolution, and also you have John Calvin, you have the Methodists, you have the Anglicans, you have even who else do you have? The Wesleyans, right? You have many different types of Protestant denominations that are really ultimately still following the Catholic Church because of the feasts that they observe, maybe minus a few, okay? But though Pope Gregory's papal bull reforming the calendar had no power beyond the Catholic Church, Catholic countries, including Spain, Portugal, and Italy, swiftly adopted the new system for their civil affairs. European Protestants, however, largely rejected the change because of its ties to the papacy, fearing it was an attempt to silence their movement. But guess what? They since adopted it. It wasn't until 1700 that Protestant Germany switched over, and England held out until 1752. Orthodox countries clung to the Julian calendar even until later, and their national churches have never embraced Gregory reforms. So Orthodox don't embrace the calendar that Pope Gregory supported. They still cling to the Julian calendar, a Western reckoning of time, okay? So let's connect the dot real quick. 1752, America is still a colony of England. So America inherently adopted the Gregorian calendar prior to its liberation or its independence, its supposed independence. It's still a colony. It still functions under the bar system, which is the British accredited registry. So if their laws go back to the crown, which ultimately lead to Rome, it's still a colony of Britain. Okay, so let's just connect these dots. So that's how it all goes back to Rome ultimately, because Rome, London City, let me be more specific, Vatican City, London City, and the District of Columbia are all in bed together. They're all in bed. They call it the Empire of the City. They run the world behind the scenes. So again, some Catholic, some Protestant countries, European Protestant countries, initially rejected the Gregorian calendar as a Catholic plot, but eventually they came home to their mother. They went right back home. Number 5, Britain's adoption of the Gregorian calendar sparked riots and protests, maybe. According to some accounts, English citizens did not react kindly after an act of parliament advanced the calendar overnight from September 2nd to September 14th in 1752. How you skip 12 days? Rioters supposedly took to the streets, demanding that the government give us our 11 days. Give us our time back. You just stripped 11 days from us. However, most historians now believe that these protests never occurred or were greatly exaggerated. On the other side of the Atlantic, meanwhile, Benjamin Franklin welcomed the change, writing, "It is pleasant for an old man to be able to go to bed on September 2nd and not have to get up until September 14th. So some people found it beneficial psychologically. Some people found it completely incompatible with what they wanted to establish. And then lastly, before the Gregorian calendar's adoption, the English New Year began on March 25th, or what they called Lady Day. Excuse me. The Julian's calendar reform of 46 BC instituted January 1st as the first of the year. This is what the Julian calendar did. This is what Julius Caesar proposed. So whenever we're recognizing January 1st as the new year, you're ultimately following the edicts and the decrees of the Roman Emperor Julius Caesar. That's what this all goes back to, okay? So if January 1st is your new year, you are in agreement with the Caesar of Rome, Julius Caesar. So during the Middle Ages, however, European countries replaced it with days that carried greater religious significance, such as December 25th, which they recognize on this particular website as the anniversary of Jesus' birth, and March 25th, the Annunciation, the Feast of the Annunciation. So these are all Catholic observances. Christmas is Catholic, let's be clear. The Feast of the Annunciation is Catholic, okay? The latter day, known as Lady Day because it celebrates the Virgin Mary, marked the beginning of the year in Britain until January 1, 1752. You can say that's the same thing on par with the United States of America. So what I wanted to do with this was distinguish and clearly demonstrate that the reckoning of time is as relating to the new year is a Roman contribution to calendric time. Calendular time, to calendular time, to calendars. The calendar that America follows is a Catholic calendar, okay? And when we will conclude this, we will see prophetically who the Roman Catholic Church is identified as in the scriptures. And this is where it's so important because, again, if you are on someone's time, that is your master. That is your superior. That is your authority. They are your authority figure, okay? So, contrasting this, I want to contrast this now. We're going to go to the scriptures again. We're going to go to the book of Exodus. Interestingly, this is included in this week's reading that we're reading from the Torah, or the first 5 books. We're in the book of Exodus now, and we're going to be reading the 10th chapter of Exodus through, I believe, the 12th chapter of Exodus, and 13th, excuse me. And this is a part of this week's reading. So I find this very timely in presenting this information as there's a harmony, a convergence, if you will, taking place, a prophetic convergence of time that is delineating that which is true in creation. And this is where we have to get, this is all about the age of apocalypse, the age of revelation, the days of revelation, because there has to be an unveiling. There has to be a bringing forth, a revealing of truth, because where we are right now is in the midst of a great darkness. And what's so crazy is there's a lot of prosperity taking place materially, but spiritually, there was a great and mighty darkness that is cloaking and shrouding and consuming this earth. And something has to be done about it. And the way that that is done is through presenting the truth. And I present the truth from the scriptures. This is not my opinion. Let me make this clear. This is not what Mikhail KUAW believes. This is not what I just believe. This is what the scriptures say. This is an ancestral, generational heirloom that has passed down from millennia. So on that note, 2022, according to Torah, according to the biblical reckoning of time, from the day that Adam was formed in his consciousness. Adam wasn't the first man. If humanity only goes back as far to Adam, we're in trouble, okay? But humanity, in terms of in its highest evolution of consciousness and the revelation of the true and living creator of heaven, earth, sea, and all that is in them, we are in the year 5782. We're in the year 5782. So if we think this is just the year 2022, that we've only been around 2022 years, boy, our orientation and our gate is off. We have a huge problem, Houston. Okay. And so looking at what the scriptures reckon as the beginning of the year, let's turn to the book of Exodus, chapter 12. Okay. We're going to read the first, really 3 verses. So look and read the first 2 verses, and then we'll I'll contextualize it with reading it to the 6th verse. So let's do that. It says, and Yah spoke to Moses, and to Aaron in the land of Mitzrayim, or Egypt, saying, this month is the beginning of months for you. We'll talk about what month that is. It is the first month of the year for you, okay? So anyone who is proclaiming to be of biblical belief, of principle according to the Bible standard, if you are not following this particular reckoning of time, you're not. You're a liar. If you're not recognizing what the scriptures determine as the year, the new year, but you're following Pope Gregory's reckoning of time, you're worshiping and serving Pope Gregory. I mean, it doesn't get any more clear than that. And you're following and worshiping what Pope Gregory is telling you to worship, because you're on Pope Gregory's time. You're not on what Yah was giving to Moses. You're not on Yah's time that was shown to Moses. So let's really delineate this. Let's make this clear, crystal clear, okay? So again, verse 2, this month is the beginning of months for you. It is the first month of the year for you. Speak to all the congregation of Israel, saying, on the 10th day of this month, each one of them, is to take for himself a lamb, according to the house of his father, a lamb for a household. And if the household is too small for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of the beans. According to each man's need, you make your count for the lamb. Let the lamb be a perfect one, a year old. Take it from the sheep or from the goats, and you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. Then all the assembly of the congregation shall kill it between the evenings. This is the first observance of the year for Israel. In the beginning of the year for Israel, in the spring. Okay, so this takes place after the spring equinox, which determines the season has changed from winter to spring on the 14th day of this new moon, which is the full moon. Okay, this now gives us the full moon. And this gives us the recognition of Pesach. We look at the moon, we know that it is the 14th day, which is the night preceding the full moon, okay? Because when it is full, that is the 15th day of the month. And then we recognize the equinox, which lets us know where the earth is in position to the sun, okay? It is going into perihelion. It is now getting closer to the sun. So this is important. So the beginning of the year scripturally is the spring. The new year in scriptures, according to Yah, revealing it to Moses, is in the spring, not the winter. We are in the dead of winter. The winter solstice just took place December 21st. But we're in a new year. How? Make it make sense. So let's take a look at something else. Let's go to this website, Torah Calendar, determining the Hebrew year. And it's really not even the Hebrew year. This is the Most High's year, which is the year of Yah, or Yah's determination of years. Okay? So the spiritual year begins at the moment of sunset at Jerusalem on the evening of the first potentially visible crescent moon beginning day one of month one. A spiritual year can begin before or after the spring equinox. And really, it takes place after. The rule of the equinox always places day 15 of month one on or after the Hebrew day of the spring equinox. A Hebrew year always contains 12 Hebrew months in a regular year or 13 Hebrew months in a leap year. The spiritual year begins on day one of month one based on the rule of the equinox, and the typical civil year begins on day one on month 7. Once every 50 years, the special Jubilee year begins on day 10 of month 7. And so we determine the month based on what cycle of the moon it is in. So once we go typically through 12 cycles of the moon from spring to spring, we know that it is a new year. So you can see here, the spring equinox gives it the equal day-night type of matter. Same with the fall equinox, the autumnal equinox. You have the vernal or spring equinox in the spring, which gives us equal day, equal night, perfectly 12 hours of light, 12 hours of dark. Same thing with the fall equinox, 12 hours of light, 12 hours of dark. Now the summer solstice gives us longer days, longer exposure to light, whereas the winter solstice is the shortest day of the year. The summer solstice is the longest day in that there's more light, and then the winter solstice is the shortest day in which there is the least amount of light in that day. So the Creator's clock, the moon travels around the earth once every lunar cycle. So when the moon cycles the earth, that's a month, okay? From a heliocentric perspective, the earth travels around the sun once every solar cycle, that's a year. The diagram above shows the position of the moon and the earth in relation to the sun for any date. So if we go and look at this today, today is January 3rd. Really, it's the 4th now, because of the sun going down, which gives a day. So if we look at this as day 4, month 1, according to, this is not the, this is the 10th month, excuse me. December, Deci, geometrically speaking, means 10. So technically speaking, we are in the 10th month of the year. Okay. So when we look at where the Earth is right now, we see that it is still in the winter. We just passed the solstice not too long ago, and it is now making its way towards the equinox. So this is where we are in time right now, based on the Earth's position of the sun, what month we're in, and what season we're in, but determining the year, what actual year it is, 2022 or 5782, is based on how many years man has kept count from the year time was first acknowledged to the present. Because why does it reset? Why would time reset? That's so interesting. 2022, why did they reset time? But we'll just talk about this some more as we go on. So again, the diagram above shows the position of the moon and the earth in the relation to the sun for any date. You see where it is today, heading towards the equinox for spring. Equinoxes and solstices are designated by long lines dividing the year into its 4 seasons. Okay, so again, we're not in a new season right now. We're in a winter dead season, but it's not renewed. It's not a new year. Everything again is still dormant. Nothing is renewed. Arrows on the gray circles show the direction of travel for the motions of the moon and the earth. The dots mark the daily position of the moon throughout the months. 3 months are shown on one on either side of the Hebrew month indicated. Okay, so let's take a look at this again. So when we look at what this is doing, this is giving us a reckoning of time, okay? The earth rotating on its axis gives us a day. The moon going around the earth gives us the month. The earth revolving around the sun gives us the year, okay? And so we know days, months, and years based on the position of these celestial bodies as relates to one another, in their relation to one another. So the equinox is in contrast to the equilux. The equilux gives us the season. The equinox gives us the precise moment in time. The equinox is what gives us the season, okay? So the date at which the time between sunset and sunrise crosses 12 hours is the equilux, okay? Because sunset and sunrise times vary with an observer's geographic location, determined by longitude and latitude. The equilux depends on location and does not exist for locations sufficiently close to the equator. The equinox, however, is the precise moment in time, which is common to all observers on Earth. The creation calendar does not use the equilux to determine the seasons, as it is not a precise moment in time. It uses what is known as the equinox. So equinoxes determine spring and fall, solstices determine summer and winter, okay? So we're not going to just beat that in the head. A solstice is an astronomical event that happens twice each year when the tilt of the Earth's axis is most inclined toward or away from the sun, causing the sun's apparent position in the sky to reach its northernmost or southernmost extreme. The name is derived from the Latin sol, which is the sun, and sister, which means to stand still, because at the solstices, the sun stands still in declination. It is in a decline, okay? That is, the apparent movement of the sun's path north or south comes to a stop before reversing direction. The term solstice can also be used in a broader sense as the day or date when it occurs. The summer solstice occurs around June 21st, the day before my birthday, and the winter solstice around December 21st on the Gregorian calendar. And we discussed this. The Gregorian calendar is based in Roman Catholic religious observance. Okay, so that is what America is following ultimately, right? You have January 1st, you have Christmas, and these are also federal holidays. This is what the government or the priesthood of the United States recognizes as their holy days. So the calendar marked with the different observances and appointed times has a religious value to it. And that's something that we can't overlook. It has a very religious value associated with it. And when we are taking our time and giving our energy, our spiritual energy to these particular times, well, we're serving the gods that are associated with those times. Because it's so interesting. When you look in the scriptures, the first thing, let's go back to Genesis. The first thing that was made holy in scripture, let me go to chapter 2. The first thing that was made holy in scripture is the seventh day. The first thing that he set it apart, the first thing that he sanctified and consecrated is time. So according to the scriptures and those who are proclaiming to be scripturally based, if your time is not in alignment with what the scriptures provide for your orientation and your paradigm, you're on someone else's time. And time is so important because salvation is determined by prophetic unfolding of time and your position relative to it. Where are you, prophetically speaking, in history relative to where the Creator wants you to be? And again, prophecy is really nothing more. And we've discussed this here on on Shifting Paradigm. We've discussed prophecy is nothing more than discerning, proclaiming, and following the will of the Most High. That's what prophecy really is. It barely deals with predictions, barely deals with predictions. Okay. So the average duration, I'm gonna go down back to this article. The average duration of an astronomical solar year is approximately 365.2422857 days, based upon calculations of Earth's orbit around the sun over a 7,000-year period, which gives us the 7,000-year plan of the Most High as well. The 7 days, 1 day is as 1,000 years, 1,000 years as a day. We're in the age approaching the Messianic age. We're in the wrapping up the age of instruction, coming out of the age of desolation. But all this time, it culminates in something. There's going to be a grand culmination at the end of this age. I don't mean that the end of the world is going to come in the world. Earth as we know is going to be no more, but the order that is on this earth will be no more because there's an elevation taking place. There's a shifting of consciousness taking place. And that intention is really going to be a matter of organic intelligence being recrowned over artificial intelligence, because what is happening on Earth is people are being programmed to use technology when in fact technology is just a replication of your extrasensory perceptions and your higher, if you will call them that, your higher psychic capabilities. The mind, the mind, right? The mind, which we only use 5, 6, 7% of. And again, though, if we're not oriented on time, we're not in alignment with time, get a sip. Everything else is going to be off. We're going to be off. We're disoriented. You're going to be late to your appointments. You're not going to be accepted, for whatever role that you were supposed to play because you're late or you're early, you're premature, And so you think of a child has a 10-month gestational period. The child comes early, there's going to be great complications. And sometimes it may not make it. The child stays in there a little longer, they get a little well done, a little cook well done. Mama is not feeling it. So time is this important. So a precise solar calendar would be one synchronized to the astronomical year, where the calendar days on which the equinoxes and solstices occur from year to year are not allowed to drift over time. Julius Caesar, intending to create such a calendar, introduced the Roman Julian calendar in 46 BC. But of course, they were 11 days off. So they had to gain that back. But the Hebrew day of equinoxes and solstices is what is supposed to balance this equation. A Hebrew day, the day for Hebrews, the Israelites, begins and ends at the time of local sunset. When the sun goes down, the previous day ends, the new day begins. Excuse me. However, a Hebrew month is determined by first potential crescent visibility at Jerusalem in accordance with Psalm 137:5. On the creation calendar, the Hebrew day of an equinox or solstice is displayed with the yellow triangle to indicate this event. Sometimes the moment of an equinox or solstice occurs after sunset at Jerusalem, but before midnight universal time. And so this is also very interesting. Who determines what a day is? What makes midnight? What makes 12 a.m. the start of a new day? It's in the middle of the night. How does that begin a new day? Whereas at sunset, the day literally has a sign letting you know it has reached a conclusion. But in the middle of a night, you're telling me the day begins? Like, make it make sense. I don't get it. The day ends when the day ends, and that's when the sun goes down, right? Now you have a new day, right? You have the eve of a new day at evening. That's what that means, evening, eve, right? Not the name of the first woman of the scriptures. Her name is KUAW, because KUAW means mother of life. Eve, in that sense, just means to be at evening. So the seasons, I'm gonna skip down some. The solstices together with the equinoxes are the demarcation points dividing the seasons in the creation calendar. The Hebrew scriptures uses the word techufot, slika, to describe the two ends of heaven in the sun's circuit as viewed from the earth. The spring and fall equinoxes, okay? So you have solstices and equinoxes. And they determine the seasons. The spring techufot is used as the orientation point to determine the entire Hebrew year, because that's when the new year starts again, according to Yah, giving the instruction to Moses to give to the people so that they would know when you observe Pesach, that is when the year starts. When you observe Passover, that is when the new year starts. The word techufot appears in various forms 4 times in scripture. In Exodus 34:22, 1 Samuel 1:20, 2 Chronicles 24:23, and Psalm 19:4. According to Exodus 34:22, the techufot occurs in the season of fall during the feast of Engal. That's called Sukkot, okay? And that's the last festival, the last day. The reference in 2 Chronicles 24:23 is probably to the season of spring, where many battles were fought in the ancient world. That's where March typically comes from. That was the god of war. Wars took place typically in the month of March, which was the god of war. So it was very ominous for that month, okay? I'm gonna scroll down some more. The rule of the equinox. Elohim created the sun to rule the day and the moon to rule the night, to separate the day from the night and to divide light from darkness. The results of this creative act are seen every day and every night, but are you paying attention? The sun and the moon were created for signs which are occasionally visible in solar and lunar eclipses. They were also created for appointed times. This point is not understood by many who follow calendars, not concerned with the movements of the sun and the moon. The sun and the moon were created also for calculating days and for calculating years. We went over that. So Elohim requires that 3 times every year all the males of Israel are to appear before him in Jerusalem during these appointed times. All 3 festivals need to take place within a single year, right? A calendar year between the equinoxes, right? The creation calendar keeps the agricultural festivals properly oriented to the solar cycle, which today is believed to be 365 days, 5 hours, 49 minutes, and 19 seconds in duration. And this is important because, again, whose time you find yourself keeping is who you serve, is who has authority over you. So again, I say, if you're following the Roman Catholic Gregorian calendar, that's your time, that's your master, that's who you're serving. If you're serving and following the calendar that Yah has given us and recognizing seasons and times and appointed times, well, that's who you're serving. And it's so important for us to recognize this. As simple as this may seem, time is all important because that's all we really got. And how we control it, how we quote unquote manage our time. What are you doing with your time, right? How you're occupying your time and who you're serving during that time. So it's very important, okay? I'm not gonna go on there. And we talked about, day and night, how that's recognized in terms of transition from day to night. This is from the Jewish Encyclopedia here. In the calendar, the word in Hebrew is luach, or a table. The transition from day to night, from light to darkness and vice versa, is gradual. In the one case, it begins before sunset and continues till after sunset. The other, it begins before sunrise, it continues until after sunrise. The two periods of transition are of undefined length and are called in Hebrew erev, which is the evening, and bocher, the morning, okay? So when you go back to Genesis 1 and you see there was evening, there came to be evening, and there came to be morning the third day. The day started at the evening. And that's so important for us to recognize if we're choosing to serve time as the scriptures inform us. But if you want to follow Gregory's time, follow Gregory's time. That's completely your discretion and your choice, okay? Excuse me. So the week consists of 7 days, right? It's so interesting. The calendar is set up right. Sunday, when you look at a calendar, is the first day of the week. Saturday is the 7th day of the week. And that's been marked in stone. The only thing that's changed is the names of the day of the week. Because in Hebrew, there are no names of the day of the week. You got Yom Rishon, you got Yom Sheni, you got Yom Shalishi, Yom Revi'i, Yom Hamashi, Yom Shishi, and Yom Shabbat. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6 in the Sabbath, right? That's how the Hebrew calendar is set up. Same with the months, right? Yom Echot, Yom Shtayim, Yom Shalosh, Yom Abba, Yom Chamesh, all the way to 12. 12 months, but they're named by their number, their ordinal number. So that's how it's set up. But when Babylon came into the picture for Israel, then they adopted names for these particular months, in these days. So very interesting. So the month passes through her different phases in 29.12 hours, 793 parts, or the halachim of an hour. So this is what determines a month, okay? The moon going through a complete cycle typically takes 29 days, 12 hours, and 793 parts, okay? That's what determines a month. So again, whereas we may be on the 3rd day of January, when we look at a moon cycle calendar, right? And we see that the moon is actually at a different place. We can see that the moon is actually today, it's a waxing crescent. So actually today is the 1st of this month. Okay, so we will actually be in the 1st of the 11th month. So very, very interesting. It's very interesting. So closing this out though, because again, time is that important. We talked about how the year is reckoned. We talked about how the month is reckoned. We talked about how the day is reckoned. We talked about whose calendar we're following and how it determines who we are ultimately worshiping and serving. Pope Gregory, the Gregorian calendar that pretty much the entire world is following. They are following the order put into place by the Roman Catholic Church. And this is where it leads us to in the summation of Hebrew vision. This is, let me go back. Daniel chapter 7, verses 19 through 26. 7. We'll close with this. It says, then I desired for certainty concerning the fourth beast. This is the Roman Empire. This is the Holy Roman Empire. Okay. The fourth kingdom on earth that would rise right before the coming of the kingdom of heaven on earth. This is the last kingdom before Yah's kingdom is established in time. The fourth beast was different from all others, very fearsome, with its teeth of iron and its nails of bronze, which devoured, crushed, and trampled down the rest with its feet. And concerning the 10 horns that were on its head, and of the other horn that came up, before which 3 fell, this horn had eyes and a mouth which spoke great words, whose appearance was greater, than his fellows. And I was looking, and this horn was fighting against the set apart ones, the saints of the Most High, the believers, the true worshipers of Yah in spirit and truth. They were fighting against them. Now, they ain't right. They ain't not saying the truth. And was prevailing against them. Now, the world is following this fourth beast until the Ancient of Days came, and right ruling, setting in place order, was given to the set apart ones of the saints of the Most High. And the time came, the set apart ones took possession of the kingdom or of the reign. But this is what he said: the fourth beast is the fourth reign on earth. And all scholars will agree that they're talking about the Vatican and the Holy Roman Empire. All scholars agree to that, which is different from all other reigns. And it devours all the earth and tramples it down and crushes it. And the 10 horns are 10 sovereigns from this reign. They shall arise, and another shall rise after them. And it is different from the first ones, and it humbles 3 sovereigns. Here's the key. Here's the operative verse. And it speaks words against the Most High. And it wears out the set apart ones of the Most High, right? That means it defeats the saints. It defeats the mind and the teachings that the saints bring, because they bring their own teaching. And they still like persecute and torture and kill, or shall I say murder, the saints. And it intends to change appointed times. That's what the whole Gregorian calendar was set up for, was to get the date of Easter established. They changed the date again from where it was already changed initially from Constantine in 325, right? Now they changed it again. So they intend to change appointed times and law, and they are given into its hand for a time, times, and a half a time, prophetically speaking. The world is turned over to this beast. The world is following and marveling after this beast. Who can make war with the beast? We follow and worship the beast. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away its rule, the saints, that is, to cut off and to destroy until the end, and the kingdom, the rulership, and the greatness of the kingdoms under all the heavens shall be given to the people, the set apart ones of the Most High, because they realign themselves in time and also in mind with the Most High. For his reign is an everlasting reign, and all rulerships shall serve and obey him. And this is time paradigmatics. I want to close on that note, because this is what this is coming down to. This is a contest of light versus darkness, truth versus falsehood, reality versus illusion. Whose time you're on determines all of that. Are you either following a scriptural basis of time for those who claim to be of the scriptures, or you're following the Pope, Pope Gregory, which is now succeeded by Pope Francis, because that's this time, okay? So with that, I want to leave this offering with you all. This is B. Michael, Shifting Paradigms. I want to thank you all for viewing. Thank KUAW for hosting. Much love and respect always. We will be back in about 2 weeks, and we will go from there. So everybody have a wonderful night, have a wonderful week, and we will see you soon. Much love.